Zeke Kralin, his latest installment of his story about the dog sitting and so on, and living in San Francisco. He's trying to terrorize me, is the title of this story. Zeke Kralin wrote, email correspondence from October 15 to the 17th. Subject, he's trying to terrorize me. Before I get into it, I want to note that my just got off my shift previous missive was composed in large part before the skateboard incident, but I had yet to send it off before it occurred. Thus, what I had planned to be a celebratory piece was poisoned at the last moment by another one of Deke's fiendish machinations, but as it turned out, it didn't stop there, for he called up to my window some hours later, 2:50 a.m. to be precise, asking me to bring down his charged devices. Foolish me, I had assumed he'd return in the morning, about 8:30, to retrieve them. That Bluetooth speaker is heavy, around 35 pounds, so being rudely awakened at such a wee hour, then lugging it downstairs on its tiny wheels, thunk, step, etc., was not appreciated, to say the least. His other devices, smartphone and 2 battery backups, I could easily pocket, so no problem there, except that he woke me up from a deep sleep to get them. As soon as I reached the front gate, but before opening it, he groused, "Come on, hurry up!" Once he took the small items and grasped the speaker handles, the bullshit hit my ears. "You shorted me $20. You still owe me $50 for Sunday. I know you have it, so bring it." Meaning the Sunday that is tomorrow, just so you won't get confused by Deke's intentional obliqueness. "No, I don't," I replied in a stoic fashion, as I knew his game was to try to make me erupt in anger. "I already gave you $50 for Sunday in advance, which was on Wednesday. Next payday is Thursday, and you'll just have to wait. No more advance anything. You're out of control, and no, I didn't short you." I then took the opportunity to tell him I saw the skateboard mishap and the bike crashing down. You could have injured those sweet little dogs because you lashed them to the bike when it was standing. You know skateboarders come by there a lot. In the middle of my admonishment, he walked away toward the bus stop where bike and pups were parked and called back to me, "I'm tempted to tie them up to this pole and leave them there for you to worry about, or just leave them there anyway, even if you don't." I coolly responded with a shrug of my shoulders. "In that case, I have no choice but to call the SPCA, tell them 2 dogs were left abandoned by my building and the police pick them up, and have you arrested for animal cruelty. Don't push it, Deke." In the midst of this argument, no screaming, though, he kept an even keel, voice-wise. He also blurted, "You even said I could get a good pair of shoes for $80. I didn't need $100. As if my saying that, after the fact, mind you, were some sort of proof I didn't give him the full $100. Dummy. Well, not so much dummy as conniver, as he knows exactly what he's doing. For no matter how flimsy his argument, and he knows it is, he'll fling it to the wall and hope it sticks. He'll try to trip you up with a barrage of accusations so fast you can't possibly debunk more than 1 or 2 before he resumes his bratty blather. So my tactic is just to stand there and listen, and when he's done, I simply say, "What a load of crap," or something similar. I just don't deal with it, as tar babies are best left untouched. I stood at the gate the whole time, leaving it ajar until I decided conversation closed, fuck you, and I need my sleep. Just when I turned and the gate clacked shut behind me, guess who I saw crossing the street toward the further end of my building? Scooter. While Deke was settled into the bus stop stall, smoking a cigarette, and the hounds were lying down on a large shag carpet remnant on the sidewalk right behind him. Again, the pups were tethered to a standing bicycle, though tilted this time in such a way as to be secured from crashing down. Jesus fucking Christ, what next? The 2 are going to team up against me, I thought, as I climbed back up the stairs. One bloodstain, by the way, could not be entirely removed, and is still visible there on the left wall close to the first landing. Still quite distinct, the wall's rough surface in that spot obviously stymied any attempt by our maintenance fellow Victor to completely scrub it out. Out, damned spot, out, I say. Soon as I got back hovel, I peered out the window to see Scooter walking back and forth below Carlson's window, whistling up and calling to him every 2 minutes or so. But in a little while he moseyed on down toward Deke, and the dogs started to bark. He walked around to the other side to distance himself from them and asked Deke for a smoke, whereupon Scooter, now with a lit Marlboro between his fingers, returned to the far end of the building to resume his meth and vodka mating call. This went on for about 10 more minutes, toward the end of which time Deke turned on his speaker and blasted rap music you could probably hear a block away. So you can imagine how loud it was for me and all the other residents on this side facing Market Street. Scooter finally departed to catch a late-night bus, thank God, and I wondered how I'm going to get Deke to quiet down. He's trying to roust me out of my bed, get me to step outside and beg him to turn it off, I thought, and then another argument would ensue, so that's not going to happen. Meanwhile, some tweaking fool meandered by, which set the mutts up for another barking spree. "Shut up, Flacco!" Deke yelled several times, his voice louder than her barks. "Shut up! Now I ask you, Watson, is he being kind to these angels? Certainly not, because all he had to do was bring the poochies to sit by him atop a comfy nest he can easily arrange. They'd quiet down in a jiff. Those poor darlings, my heart goes out to them. It looks like their master is conjuring up an even worse scenario to thwart my friendship with them than he's ever done before. I finally broke down and dialed the SFPD non-emergency number to report a noise disturbance. They answered the phone promptly this time, said they'd send someone out soon as they can, short of other emergencies that might intrude. I thanked them, and she told me if anything changes, please call them back. Well, it did. Only several minutes later, while I lay back down and focused on some scary tale playing from my smartphone set beside the pillow. I don't really have a pillow, by the way, thanks to this ongoing bedbug fiasco. Instead, I use an old winter jacket rolled up. Quite comfortable, actually. Better than a conventional pillow. Go tell that to the My Pillow man. To my relief, the rap fest suddenly ceased a scant 4 minutes later, so I got up again to look outside and saw Deke and Mutz ambling down the sidewalk toward Castro Street. So I redialed non-emergency, which did not immediately pick up this time around, but I didn't have to wait long nonetheless. Told them to cancel my complaint, the offender just took off, and all was pacific once again. It was close to 4 a.m. by now. As soon as I laid my weary old body back down in a blissful state of mind, anticipating the undisturbed repose I surely deserve, a Recology garbage truck came rumbling up to the bus stop and spent ungodly minutes emptying the trash bins out there. Think clunk, crash, thunk, rattle, rattle, about 100 times in a row, right in your ear. It was nothing short of a dopamine high when I heard the truck finally thunder down the street. And the night fell silent once again, but that only lasted a measly 10 minutes or so before a humongous delivery truck parked right beneath my windows and kept the engine running at a roaring decibel while the driver moved pallets of goods from his vehicle and wheeled them into super-duper burgers. 7 slow, excruciating trips in all before he slammed the back door down into its locking groove like a garage door on rollers and took off. Approaching 4:30 a.m., I rolled over and focused on the horror podcast, still whispering from my phone, though I had missed the first 6 parts, as I drifted off to sleep at last. But a short while later, some screeching crackhead made his presence known all along this block of Market Street, preaching hellfire, brimstone, the sins of faggotry and flying saucers. Oh, that is a delightful string of words. I will have to use that for a title of a show one time. Hellfire, brimstone, the sins of faggotry, and flying saucers. He continues, that we may all heed his dire warnings and not boink him in the ass without first being anointed by the sacred hoobie-heebie. This is inspired. I like this better than the other ones. He goes on, the bane of insomnia has not been, the sacred hoobie-heebie. The bane of insomnia has not been my lot for the past several years, thank Thulhu, with rare exception, but damned if I could get any sleep for the remaining hours till daylight. So I arose from my cot an hour earlier than usual, 7:30 a.m. instead of 8:30, performed my morning ablutions, then strolled on over to Rosenberg's for that bracing golden brown elixir, with a cholesterol-clogging shot of half and half and 2 packets of sweet and low. Ah, Avalon, Belenus is in the clouds, and all's right with the Isles. Does not my bodhisattva premise teach me never to get caught up in any negative emotions or fantasies? And in this case, the demon of worry threatens to rend my spirit asunder, dwelling on worst-case scenarios such as Scooter hooking up with Deke or my Cajun trickster trying to intimidate me, to cause me to react in anger, or his dumping those furry angels for good, or poisonous concoctions that one should never quaff, for instead of quenching one's thirst, it will quench soul-sucking vampires that will surround and suffocate me if I give in to delusional nightmares. So, 'tis another loverly day in paradise. Count your blessings, Zeke, and trust that your confounding amigo shall come to his senses, at least in part, and show you a modicum of respect. He's trying to terrorize me, Watson wrote. He's bullying you horribly, waking you up at almost 3 a.m., making a racket, making demands, extorting money out of you, holding the dogs hostage. Really heinous. So I replied, he thinks he's cool playing gangsta, but it's going to backfire on him horribly unless he shapes up fast. I've already warned him more than once. He's going in a bad direction. He's got to hook into a perfect excuse to harangue me constantly, the so-called $20 jip. But if it weren't that, he'd find something else. He's constantly scheming up new ways to malign me. Boy, do I need a spy cam now to record all this. But alas, I can't afford one. And besides, they're cheaply made and will fail on you within a month or two. I can't just hold a camera up to him, smartphone or otherwise. Thus, my best option is simply to not worry and trust the fates. They have never failed me. He has tried to set me up many times before, but since I held my ground calmly and not in anger, he's backed off each time. I'm being tested once more, per my bodhisattva premise. I can see Arwen getting involved with me again, thanks to the doggies. He'll fall in love with them in an instant, and once he's witnessed some of Deke's malicious pranks, Arwen's certainly the one who can set him straight. Deke hasn't shown up yet today. I thought he would, maybe later, though I think he could be staying away until his next payday approaches. Subject: Doggies love their tent. I asked Deke if it's okay to camp behind the building again since the sidewalk there has been recently washed down and scrubbed. He said okay, and I guess he agreed in part because 2 houseless dudes at the ATM depot were kind of sketch, and the dogs would bark too much and not get their needed rest. After moving the mutts, his cart, and cumbersome 2-seat bicycle around the corner, I realized now is a good time to try out the tent. Very pleased with the results. Excellent news to report about Deke. But details must wait until this evening when Deke has collected the canines and I'm back indoors. Just thought to tell you now, so you won't worry about the ugly scenario I described in a recent missive. It's all cool now. Well, got to get back to the pups. I just reached the part in Marshall's latest podcast where he begins reading my Paris tale just after hour 3, so I'm going to lie down in the tent with my feet sticking out and the pups by my side and enjoy the narration. Subject: Sitting in my tent right now, typing on my Chromebook. And I even have internet. Someone who lives in the back of this building also uses Xfinity, so I piggybacked on it. This is a nice feature they provide. Any Xfinity customer can use another customer's Wi-Fi, and it's very secure. You can't access another person's activity, nor can they yours. This feature can be turned off, but mostly keep it on. It's an opt-out feature. The connection is not great, but quite doable. Deke returned an hour ago, delighted to see my pup tent, and has not even suggested he sneak inside it with me. Right now I'm sitting in the tent with my legs sticking out, the mutts curled up beside me, and Deke and a friend he said he's known for 10 years, old Joe, were sitting a few feet away, smoking, drinking Arizona tea, noshing and chewing the fat. It was nice to see none of his comrades added alcohol to the mix. Deke himself is an unrepentant teetotaler. He told me old Joe is part of his street rapping group. He has a great singing voice that imitates the sound of an old radio. He used to join in on choruses while in prison and then add his vocal talent as background harmony. Boulevard Joe visited a while, too, for about a half hour. I don't know what they talked about, as I was listening to more of Marshall's podcast with earbuds. Deke said I could go back indoors if I'd like. He'll just be hanging here for a bit. Offered to help me knock down the tent, but I said not necessary. I can do it easily myself, and I'd like the doggies to have their tent while he's still here. Then he wants to hop somewhere else for about an hour, if I don't mind being outside longer. I said, no, that's fine. I can go upstairs right now and kick back if I want. Deke knows not to allow anyone inside the tent. It's just for the dogs. He's mellow tonight. Said he took some shrooms today. Wish he'd take them more often. Regarding our meet-up this morning, he backed off of his false accusations and crazy talk, apologized, said he was on some crazy shit last night. I advised him to stop talking to other people about our money arrangement, especially when he tells them I ripped him off. It could cause trouble for me and him. It's really no one's business. Apology accepted, I said, but you could do a lot of damage in my life by flying into a rage and bad-mouthing me before you come to your senses and apologize. I trust this shitty kind of behavior will be a thing of the past at this point. At any rate, I had a lovely, peaceful day and got to hear Marshall read my Paris tale. Unfortunately, he skipped 2 whole pages of it because for some reason the text was missing. He prints everything out he intends to read, and I think that's what happened. I think what happened was those 2 pages slipped out of his folder. Nonetheless, I thanked him in an email for another superb narration after showing him those 2 missing pages in the PDF link he used to print out my tale. I feel like a new world is unfolding, and I'm not even on shrooms.